Hi, I'm Raylyn Worcester, and this is Spreading the Word. That's word with a capital W, as in the written word, the Bible, and the Word made flesh, Jesus Christ. I'm about to read to you the second story in the Still Learning short story series. This follows Maddie, who is no longer 5 years old, but is now a teenager and has a whole different set of lessons to learn. In the second story, Maddie learns to be herself in Mountains Out of Molehills. Here we go. A loud, low wolf whistle filled the air. All heads turned to see the object of such appreciation. "Is that Hillary Houston?" Susie asked, mouth agape. "Summer has certainly been kind to her," Annie remarked. Indeed, while her two best friends since grade school flanked Maddie on each side, as they walked through the courtyard of Eddington Middle School, Hillary Houston walked alone, down the sidewalk, head down, clutching her books to her chest. "She looks great," Susie breathed. "She looks miserable," Maddie thought. Both girls were right. Maddie remembered when she first met Hillary. She'd been in second or third grade, and she went to the junior high play. She sat behind Hillary but couldn't see the play around her because Hillary Houston had been fat. Well, Hillary was fat no more. She'd gone to spend the summer with her grandparents and came back looking much different. Hillary had lost 30 pounds. All that remained of her previous plump body was, well, boobs, the object of the wolf whistle. The boys obviously appreciated Hillary's new shape, but the jury was still out with the girls. While Hillary had been the fattest girl in primary school, she was now the sexiest girl in middle school. The three girls rushed in behind Hillary as the bell for class began to ring. The morning passed as school mornings always did, and soon it was lunchtime. In the cafeteria, Maddie, Annie, and Susie each took their seats at their regular table. Maddie noticed that Hillary sat alone at one and was rising to invite her to sit with them when the football team, yes, the entire team, walked over to sit with her. "Lucky her," Susie sighed. Hillary didn't look lucky to Maddie. She sat with her eyes on her tray, picking at her food, seemingly not even paying attention to the boys fawning over her. The rest of the day crawled to an end, and soon it was time to go home. On the bus, Maddie, Annie, and Susie squished together on a seat built for two. Hillary, who used to take up one seat by herself, was now pressing herself up against a window as several boys tried to seat themselves next to her. Susie turned her head in disgust. Maddie thought she saw a tear in Hillary's eye. The next morning, as Maddie was getting ready for school, she stood for a moment before the mirror. She pushed her shoulders up around her neck and pushed her arms into her side, trying to build a little cleavage. She sighed and relaxed. There was nothing to cleave. She hoped she would wake up and miraculously have something more to show for herself this morning, but she was still as flat as ever. On her way out the door, she asked Mom, "Hey, Mom, when did you start to get boobs?" Mom raised an eyebrow, but answered, "Oh, I don't know, 14 or 15, I guess. Our family has always had late bloomers." Great, Maddie thought glumly as she hurried out the door. Maddie walked down the bus aisle toward Annie and Susie, who had already saved a seat for her. Susie was wearing a sweater over her blouse today. That's odd, Maddie thought. It's already getting warm today. She's going to roast. As Maddie scrunched in next to Susie, her arm brushed against her sweater, and Maddie thought she heard a crinkling noise. "What was that?" she asked. "What was what?" Susie replied, pulling her sweater closed. "Nothing, I guess," Maddie answered. "I thought I sat on your homework or something." She stood and looked beneath her. "Nope, just hearing things." Maddie was the first of the three off the bus. "See you all at lunch," she hollered over her shoulder as she headed off to class. At lunch, Annie and Susie were already in line, so Maddie went to save the table. She noticed as they approached with their trays that Susie's sweater protruded a bit in the front. She looked from Susie to Annie and back to Susie again. "Susie, you should take off your sweater," Maddie suggested. "It's awful warm in here." "Yeah," Annie sneered. "Take off your sweater, Susie." "Okay," Susie said, setting down her tray. She removed her sweater, and there, poking out from her white blouse, were two small lumps. "Like them?" Susie said. "I grew them overnight." She put her hands on her hips and turned from side to side. Maddie looked quickly around to see if anyone else had noticed. But just like yesterday, all eyes were on Hillary's table. Annie said, "Well, Susie, it looks like they grew in lopsided. Here, let me help you." She reached up and adjusted Susie's left boob, which made a crinkling sound as she did. "Just as I thought," Annie announced triumphantly. "Newspaper." Susie's face turned red. "Fine," she said, reaching under her shirt and removing 2 wads of newspaper. "I just wanted the boys to like me, too," she whined. "One day," Annie explained. "In the meantime, we love you just the way you are," she added. They finished their lunch in silence, then headed off to class. On the bus home, Susie didn't wear her sweater, and her boobs were noticeably absent. The girls all laughed and giggled together, and the incident was soon forgotten. Well, nearly forgotten. Maddie thought Susie had the right idea. She just used the wrong material. Newspaper is hard and crinkly. She needed something soft and natural looking. She went into the kitchen the next morning and looked through the cupboard. "Ah, perfect. These will do nicely," she thought. "Not too many. I want it to be believable." Maddie boarded the bus as usual. Susie and Annie were saving the seat. As Maddie approached, she had 2 small but noticeable lumps under her shirt. Annie's mouth fell open. "Like them?" Maddie asked, putting her hands on her hips and turning in each direction. "I grew them overnight." She sat down and Susie deliberately let her arm brush up against Maddie. There was no crinkly sound. Annie looked closer. Maddie was not lopsided. "Touch 'em," Maddie whispered. "They're soft, normal boobs." "We'll pass," Susie said, and Annie nodded her agreement. She shrugged. Maybe Maddie had grown them overnight. Maddie's morning went great. She enjoyed all the extra attention she was getting. She earned her very own wolf whistle, and one of the boys hanging on Hillary came over to walk her to class instead. But all that changed at lunch. Maddie was just lifting a spoon of chocolate pudding to her lips when she felt something drip onto her lap. She looked down to wipe up the pudding she must have dropped and looked in confusion at a white spot on her jeans, not a brown one. Suddenly, she felt another splash. Her eyes widened in horror as she realized what was happening. Her boobs were melting! Maybe marshmallows hadn't been the perfect solution after all. Maddie left her seat abruptly and ran to the ladies' room, hoping no one else noticed her rapidly shrinking boobs and white splattered jeans. Thank God the bathroom is empty, Maddie thought as she entered. She stood before the sink and removed her blouse. Her flat little chest and stomach were all sticky with white streaks running down them. She gathered some paper towels, ran them under the water, and began to clean herself up. She dried herself with more paper towels and put her blouse back on. As she was getting ready to leave, she heard quiet sobs coming from one of the stalls. She thought she'd been alone in the bathroom. Maddie walked to the stall and knocked gently on the door. "Are you okay in there? Is there anything I can do to help?" The stall door opened and a red-eyed Hillary walked out. "Oh, I don't know," she answered facetiously. "Can you make these go away?" She pointed to her chest. "What? Why?" Maddie asked. "Me and my friends have been trying to get them, and you're trying to get rid of them?" she asked, shaking her head. Hillary grabbed a paper towel and wiped her face. "Don't be in a hurry to get boobs, Maddie," Hillary advised. "They are more trouble than they are worth. All the girls are jealous of me, and none of them want to be around me because they look flat by comparison." Annie had actually mentioned that to Maddie once. She nodded as Hillary continued. "People think I'm older than I am, and they're constantly offering me beer and weed." Her face screwed up again, and tears filled her eyes once more. "But the worst part is the boys. None of them like me for me. They're taking bets who can get to first base with me first. No one likes me. I wish I was fat again. I had a few friends then." Maddie spun Hillary around and gave her a hug. "Well, you've got one now, too," she said. "You are beautiful, Hillary. You're right, the girls are just jealous. But you did a lot of hard work to lose that weight. You should be proud of yourself. And you're smart, Maddie, and kind. You're cute, and your boobs will grow in one day. Until then, I think you're perfect," Hillary added. "Thanks," Maddie said. "I guess I was just making mountains out of molehills." Literally. They burst into giggles, and the two girls left the bathroom together, both feeling much better than they had when they entered it. As they walked to class, Maddie heard a little chime on her cell phone. It was her daily Bible verse. 1 Samuel 16:7. "Man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart." Maddie chuckled and shook her head. She could have used that verse this morning before marshmallow madness took over. On the way home, Susie and Annie shared a seat on the bus, and Maddie and Hillary shared a seat. "You'll sit with us from now on," Maddie said. Susie and Annie nodded their agreement. The four girls decided they would just be themselves from now on, and the four of them became inseparable. The end.